This is my intro music. Welcome to the video. I hope you like it lots, so don't forget to subscribe and click the thumbs up button. Now let's react.
Alright, hey, hi, hello there, and welcome to another episode of me watching Anna's podcast. Woo! I don't have it up yet. It's not Anna's podcast, actually. It is, the Lipedema Mama's podcast. And this is the episode of Spicy Takes with TikTok sensation Anna O'Brien, I think it was. I'll pull up the whole thing here in a second. Trying to figure out why it's not showing it. I should have a little thingy in the corner here. Give me a second. Okay, we are back. Now, this podcast is like a normal podcast in that it doesn't have video. So, you know, we're keeping with the traditional podcast format here, which again, I'm not mad about. So, there's that. All right, let me close Discord down. Don't need Discord right now. I have already tried to record this once. I got about halfway through the video, and then I found out that I had really foobarred the audio. So, I have to re-record it. Now, because of that, I know what's going to happen in the first 30 minutes. But I want to just get this all set up again. I do have the podcast set to go at 1 1/3 speed. And as I was saying, because there is no video, we're going to be playing Project Zomboid with a new character. And there's an island that I'm trying to get to. We've already driven there. Honestly, nothing exciting has happened. Basically, I've just kind of rallied my resources and driven straight to the island. So now we're going to figure out how to get to the island. Because there's no swimming in this game, and there's no boats. I have a plan. I don't think it's going to work, but I have a plan, and we're going to give it a shot. Anyway. Back to this. This is, what is the whole title of this video? There we go. It's Spicy Takes with TikTok sensation and Lipedema patient Anna O'Brien on the Lipedema Mama's podcast. This is going to get a lot. Anna O'Brien is known for her bold social media presence as at Glitter and Lasers, garnering a following of close to 12 million. Bullshit. I am irritated by this number, mainly because these two women who run this Lipedema Mama's podcast, they are active social media people themselves, and they damn well know that Anna does not have a following of 12 million. What they are doing is adding Anna's TikTok, her YouTube, and her Instagram following together as if all three of those are separate entities. As if there is no overlap in followers whatsoever, which is bullshit. There is a huge overlap in followers across those three platforms. Plus any of her, Facebook followers, and any of the other smaller social medias like Threads or wherever else Anna posts that I am not keeping up with. So she doesn't have 12 million followers. Period. End of discussion. I've seen this really interesting thing that has been run on her analysis that has been run on her following for her, I believe her TikTok of 8.5 million, which I think is a more accurate count of her actual follower because it's the highest that out of all of her social media accounts, TikTok has the highest follower count, which I think is the more accurate number to go with. I don't believe she has an active 8.5 million followers. And after seeing this breakdown that Nerfy was able to find, it broke down the active versus inactive percentage of that 8.5 million. And like 68% of that following is inactive. They're considered dead followers. They don't interact with the social media in any way, shape, or form. So they're not, for all intents and purposes, they are not followers. They're not real people, right? Only 38% or 34% of her followers actually interact with her social media, which 34 to 38% of 8.5 million is still a lot of people. That's nothing to shake a stick at. but it's not 12 million. And these two women, right off the fucking bat here, are lying. And they have to know they're lying. They're social media people. They have to understand that this is not how numbers work in the social media sphere. Anna does everything with authenticity. Color, pizzazz, and captivating candor. She does have color, and I will give her pizzazz. Captivating candor, I think Anna wrote this. She loves sharing about the things she really loves online, and she has recently undergone several lipedema removal surgeries, including a brachioplasty, and she did it all in real time in front of her followers. Kind of? I will argue about the real time part, because we are always confused about the timeline. I always say I don't need to know exactly when things are occurring in Anna's life. Like, I don't need to be present in the exact moment that things are happening, but it would actually help Anna out if Anna were to say the dates of when things have occurred, even if she's telling us a week after the fact, giving us a timeline. Because the way Anna posts her social media, her shit jumps all over the place, and it's very hard to keep track of when things are occurring in her timeline, and it causes people to get confused. It causes people to speculate, and those things tend to piss Anna off. And then we get her having her little rages on her Instagram stories, and she looks like a dumbass. And it doesn't stop us, the audience, from speculating about what she's doing, why she's doing it. You know, has she gained weight? Has she lost weight? Is she using slimming filters? Is she wearing compression? What is she doing now? I mean, and then Anna gets her feelings hurt because people have questions, and there's a lot of questions that people have that could be answered if Anna would just give us a solid timeline. And again, I don't need to know that she's going to the doctor on X date at X time. I don't need to know that. But, you know, a week or two after or day or two or whatever after the fact, if she could say, I went to the doctor on X date and this is what we did, that's fine. You could tell me a month after the fact. But if you just had a solid timeline for us to follow, that would eliminate a good 60, 70% of the problems people have. Not everything, but a good chunk of them. Anyway, so that's my argument with the real-time thing. Also, Anna doesn't interact with her followers, so that also kind of hinders that real-time argument. Anna doesn't interact with her followers unless she has to. It's come to my attention that any of her sponsored shorts that she puts up on YouTube, because currently, to my knowledge, she does not have comments turned on any of her YouTube shorts that are not sponsored. And the only reason she has comments turned on her sponsored videos is because she has to, because they're sponsored. And I don't think she interacts with the comments on her sponsored videos. So what's the point? Anyway, Anna hopes to bring awareness to lipedema through her transparent journey. It's about as transparent as mud. And we think she's doing an amazing job. Do you? It's my understanding that these two women also have lipedema. But I don't know a lot about this podcast, so I'm just going with my assumptions. So those of you who listen to this podcast, let me know. Listen as we get some spicy takes for her about what it's like navigating this life with lipedema and other health issues on this episode of the Lipedema Mama's podcast. There's a big gap, and then it says, she has even started her own podcast in order to spread awareness for other lesser-known illnesses. Check it out on the Medical Detectives podcast. It's interesting. This little paragraph is very interesting to me because Anna has a co-host whose name is Dr. Nance, I think. And Dr. Nance is window dressing. Dr. Nance is on the podcast because they wanted somebody with a DR in front of their name. And that's what they got. In all of the clips that Anna shows and the few I listened to the first like 4 or 5 episodes of the podcast. Dr. Nance barely talks, and when she does, it's never really useful. Half the time, the people who are the guests are giving better information than Dr. Nance does. Dr. Nance doesn't know anything about the majority of the things that the guests come on to talk about. It's a little disheartening, honestly. Dr. Nance is a doctor. She's a orthopedic. She does think that's right. She does hand and arm. She probably knows her shit about that, I would assume. But she's a TikTok doctor, and I mean that in like the not so nice sense of that word. So she's a social media doctor, and it shows. And she spends most of her time doing this when Anna's talking, and that's pretty much it. So I'm not impressed with Dr. Nance, I guess is where I'm going with that. So it might as well just be Anna's podcast, because pretty much all of the clips that Anna shares with us and all of pretty much the podcasts that I've listened to, it's basically just Anna talking, and sometimes the guest gets to talk. And every once in a great while, Dr. Nance will add something to the podcast. To find more with Anna, visit her website, glitterandlasers.com, and look for her at Glitter and Lasers on all social media platforms. Her website is not very active. I will give her that. Excuse me, I've got a frog in my throat. I don't know why. I'm going to blame spring. Today is March the 20th. Happy spring equinox. Happy sinus and allergy day. They go on to advertise their FDRS conference in Atlanta, Georgia, fat disorder, something conference, whatever. I think Colin talked about this particular group in his lipedema video that he did before this last video, documentary that they did. Both are very good. Please go watch. The Lipedema Mamas are also sponsored by Lipolastic, which is a compression garment company, which I believe Anna has been picked to be a sponsor, to be sponsored by. I think she's an ambassador of them now. So you will hear ads for the Lipolastic. I will probably try to skip through those just because we don't need to listen to their ads. I'm not making money off their ads. But if I'm like way into my game at the moment, we'll might end up listening to them. Anyway, but yeah, they just have some ads for the Lipolastic and the Lipedema Mamas and some discounts and their actual social media. I will be listening to them through Spotify because that's my preferred podcasting software. They're on other platforms if you want to go listen to them. This is one podcast out of a number that they have. I don't know how big of a I do not know how large of a podcast they are. I don't know how large of an audience they have. They pulled Anna on. It could be because Anna's looking for clout. It could be because, like Amron, they're trying to use Anna for clout. I don't know. We can look into it a little bit later. But right now, I just want to kind of get through this podcast. Now, again, I did say I have listened to the first half hour of this. So I know going into this, put my phone on silent. I do know going into this that Anna spends the first half hour. There's two major lies besides the 12 million followers that happen. And she calls, not out by name, but she definitely calls Alan Roberts out. Again, accusing him of being like a snake oil salesman. I don't know why she's insisting on picking a fight with YouTube people, but whatever. I mean, I guess if it makes you feel better to pick a fight with Alan Roberts, knock yourself out. Anna acts before she thinks sometimes, and it's very evident, which I think is why Instagram stories work so well for her in her head, because it allows her to vent in her words. And then she thinks it's going to vanish after 24 hours, but it doesn't because people record it. And her going after Alan like this, I think, is another one of those moments where she's acting before she thinks. Like she thinks it's cute in the moment, and it's not. But anyway, what was the other thing? Oh, and again, I've listened to this already. These two women suck Anna's ass so fucking hard. It's like listening to two vacuum cleaners for a half hour. It is. I have never heard two hosts fawn over a guest so hard in my life. I am just absolutely stunned. I have heard podcast hosts invite guests that they are massive fans of. I myself have interviewed people who I just adore. And you spend the first, I don't know, 5-10 minutes getting your fangirl out, and you're like, oh my God, I'm just so glad you're here. And or you do it before the podcast starts, and you're just like, you get it out because you don't want it to come out in the podcast. I mean, it's going to come out, but you don't sit there for the rest of the podcast and just kiss ass. It makes a shitty podcast, right? Anyway, so just putting that out there, one podcaster to another. Anyway, so that's just my general critiques after listening to this podcast for a half hour already. We're going to listen to the first half hour because I recall that's about how long it took me to get about an hour's worth of content out of this. I will be playing Project Zomboid in the background. We're going to try to build a bridge. We'll see how this works. And like I said, they are sped up. So if they sound like they're talking a little fast, it's because they are, but I sped them up. And I can't really think of anything else. So, thank you to everybody who's been supporting the channel. Thank you to my subscribers. Thank you to my members. You guys rock. Happy Equinox. If you like this kind of content, don't forget to subscribe. And I will see. No, I'm not ending this. Let's go.
Conference is happening March 21st through the 23rd in Atlanta, Georgia. And there are tickets to be there in person or virtually.
This is a conference where professionals and patients alike get to rub elbows and learn from one another.
The Lipedema Mamas will be there too, recording exciting live episodes.
Just checking my sounds.
Information to join is in the show notes.
Yay.
Welcome to Lipedema Mama's podcast. I'm Sean Digby, and this is my co-host, Ashley Fisher.
This is a space where we talk all things lipedema, connecting you with resources, education, and inspiring personal stories.
From these Lipedema Mamas to you, we hope to bring you the support you need on your own journey with lipedema.
All right, let's get into the show. Welcome back to the Lipedema Mamas podcast. Today, we have a super duper special guest that we are so excited about. We have with us Anna O'Brien. She is Glitter and Lasers on Instagram. She has a platform that reaches somewhere around a cool 12 million people, so no big deal. She is the confidence queen. And if you have...
I have already told you about the 12 million, and they're the confidence queen. Anna is one of the least confident people I've ever seen.
Not just absolutely doused yourself in her content. What are you doing? Because it is, you seriously, Anna, are one of the brightest, most wonderful spots on the interwebs, and we are so excited to have you here.
If you want to see some decent, fat, positive, fashion-driven content, I totally recommend you going and follow Rosie Beam, because she is a fat, positive content creator. I happen to actually like her style, so there's that. And she's not constantly trying to garner attention and tell everybody how fucking awesome she is like Anna, because she doesn't give a shit if you like her or not. She's putting it out there.
With us today.
Can you please just follow me around and hype me up everywhere? Because I need more of that in my life.
Absolutely. You just tell me when and where, and I will be there, and I'll have a boombox and everything.
I'll get you pom-poms. I will kit you out.
I'll do it. Listen.
Until you just said glitters and lasers, this whole time I've thought your page was called Glitters and Glazers.
Yes.
And I was thinking, like, what is a glazer?
I know.
And now it makes a lot more sense hearing you read it like that. Where'd your name come from, though? Funny
story.
I forgot about
I
this.
was in Austin for South by Southwest, and I was a big nerd. And I was walking down the street with my friend Elliot, who, I mean, I haven't talked to him in forever, but I'd had a few. Let's be real here. I'd had a couple drinks. And Elliot turned to me and goes, what would be like the best party if like guys and girls took the best thing from a guys and girls party and threw a party, what it would be? And I go, glitter and lasers. And I said, I'm gonna buy that domain right now. Drunk me in my like 20s bought this domain.
That's amazing.
And because I was a tech nerd, I also went and got all the social.
See, that's fantastic. That's awesome. And
That's
honestly, I have done the same.
All right, for starts, let's begin. Let's begin with the debunking. For those of you who follow this channel, you know that I have periodically been going back and looking at Anna's old Glitter and Laser entries from her blog, which still exists. Her Glitter and Lasers blog still exists, but back when she originally started it, it was a weight loss blog that she started after she applied to go on Biggest Loser, which she did not make, but again, not a big deal. A lot of people apply for that, and not very many people get on it, obviously. But she had applied to go on Biggest Loser because her sister had recently passed away from literally obesity-related complications. And she had lost her mother not many years before that from, again, obesity-related issues. That's written on their death certificates, by the way. Anna admits this. This is stuff Anna has told us in her blog that she scrubbed from the internet, right? So the way the Glitter and Lasers blog got started was Anna wanted to create a blog to track her health journey, losing weight to get healthy, because she didn't want to go down the same road that her mother and her sister went down, i.e. dying from obesity, right? And she and a male friend who may or may not be Elliot, I don't know. We don't know who Elliot, or excuse me, we don't know who Lasers is. I just know that Laser was a male co-author on the blog, and he wrote entries on the blog for roughly the first year and then dipped. I don't know what happened. It could just be he got busy. Blogs were like a thing for a while, and, you know, people wrote them and left, and it was just like, it was a thing. All right. So nothing could have happened. And he was just like, I'm not, blogging's not my thing. Right. It may or may not be Elliot. I don't know. We have no way of confirming one way or the other. Whoever Lasers was, Lasers left the scene. Lasers doesn't want to be part of the scene. I am not in any way, shape, or form interested in trying to figure out who Lasers was. So I am not here for that. If someone out there is like, oh, I found Lasers, I don't care. I don't want to know. So there you have that. Anyway, my point is, though, the original Glitter and Lasers, Anna was Glitter and her male friend was Lasers. Those were their online code names. And Anna referred to herself as Glitter even after Lasers left. Like in the blogs, when she referred to herself in the third person, sometimes she would say Anna, but a lot of times she would refer to herself as Glitter. And Anna did that for at least until 2014. Somewhere around 2014, 2015, something occurred. The blog went dark. Anna came back around 2016, scrubbed everything weight loss related from the blog and from her Instagram. And that's when she came back as the Anna we know, who is now Glitter and Lasers, right? So that's when she came back as Glitter and Lasers. The way she starts talking right now, going forward here, because again, I've already heard this part. The way she starts talking, it doesn't sound like she's acknowledging the 2012 through 2014 part of Glitter and Lasers. It's like she is once again ignoring that aspect existed of the blog. She will make this one quick throwaway comment about, oh, it started with weight loss. I've said that in the past. And she's never said that as far as I'm aware. Maybe she has also at some point made a very quick throwaway comment like that. But that's how Anna gets away with this bullshit where she's like, oh, I've mentioned I was on weight loss drugs before. Like that real quick comment like you just made. You've never talked about it. That's not talking about it. That's making a throwaway comment so that later on you can be like, yeah, I mentioned it for 2 seconds once before in a podcast 5,000 years ago. That's not talking about it, Anna. That's not how this works. And you damn well know that because this is what you used to do for a living. But anyway, she's going to go on, and the way she's going to talk about it is going to be very similar to the story that she told in the first episode of the Medical Detectives podcast, where she tries to make it sound like she started Glitter and Lasers because the company she was working for at the time needed to test some algorithm software. And she was doing this as basically a favor to her company, which contradicts any other story that she has told before these two podcasts, where she told interviewers, she has been interviewed in the past about why she started this, where she has told interviewers that she started her Instagram because she just wanted to start taking pictures of herself in her outfit of the day because it was a way of improving her own self-confidence wearing cute clothes, right? So it was originally a project for herself, for her own self-confidence, that took off. These are things that she has said in interviews in the past, right? And we know from the Wayback Machine, which archived her blog, that the original creation of the Glitter and Lasers blog was because Anna wanted to track her health journey because she wanted to lose weight and get healthy. And we also know because of that, she did actually lose weight. I think in grand total, from the point that she started the blog till she vanished, I think she lost somewhere around, she lost over 100 pounds. I want to say it's somewhere around 120 to 170 pounds. I don't remember right off the top of my head. So I'm just giving you like a ballpark. But she lost quite a bit of weight just through diet and exercise, right? So that's interesting. That right there just kind of blows all of the bullshit Anna tries to sell us about this whole lipedema shit out of the water, right? So anyway, I just want you guys to be aware that this is what we are, how many minutes into this podcast? 3.5 minutes into this podcast, and Anna is already not only revising the history of Glitter and Lasers, the brand, but she's lying. The only thing I can say is at least she kind of sort of sticks to the story, the origin story that she uses in her own podcast, kind of. Even here, she's like expanding on it a little bit, like she did with the whole jogging story, where every time she retold the story, she added more details to it. She's doing the same thing here. Anyway.
I don't know what it is with my eyeballs. Every time Sean and I have talked, we've been like, hey, we need to reach out to Glitter Glazers. So I went and I trained my eyeballs and I was like, glitter and lasers, glitter and lasers, glitter.
It's fine. I don't know what a glazer is. Sounds like a donut. I like a good donut.
Oh,
It's
there
fine.
you go. That was
I
not
do
bad.
too.
That's pretty good. So
Donuts.
Anna, you are,
What are
and
we
correct
doing?
me if I'm wrong, you are a stage 4 lipedema patient
Yes.
who has
Stage
been,
4.
yeah.
Anna is not stage 4 because to be stage 4 in the United States, you have to have lipedema. And Anna has been told by Karen Herbst herself, who is recognized as the expert of lipedema in the United States, that she does not have lymphedema. Therefore, Anna cannot be a stage 4 patient by the U.S. standards. And I don't think stage 4 exists outside of the U.S., but I could be wrong about that one. So Anna is not stage 4 lipedema because she does not meet the requirements for being stage 4. So there you go.
You've been going through a series of surgeries with Dr. Amron's office, the Roxbury Institute, Advanced Lipedema Treatment Team. And I want to get to all of that, but I just want to know, because again, whenever I found your page before you started your surgery journey, it was fairly short. It was like, I found you, and then the next week you were like talking about consults. I was like, whoa, look at that. But I found your page and I was like, oh my gosh, this woman is just, I want to be her friend. That's why I messaged you and pestered you.
I'm sorry.
Because you have such a brightness about you, such a joy. You are the confidence queen. And we can talk about that because I know that what we put out there and versus how we feel sometimes are probably two different things. But I want to know what happened. Like, why did you even start Glitter and Lasers? And why did you start these platforms?
So this is the probably most unusual influencer start story you will ever hear. When I first had Glitter and Lasers, like when I first started it, it was literally for my friends. And I don't know if you guys remember the era of where everybody had a blog. Everybody and your brother had a blog. Like we all thought that people cared about the mundane details of our life. We all had the blog spot, and we all would
Did you have a Zanga?
Oh, hell yeah, I had a Zanga. I just migrated through whatever was the platform du jour, and I was trying to lose weight at the time, which I've talked about before. And I didn't necessarily know about lipedema, but it was that. Then I just let it be my like friend page. It was back before people.
And the way she's making it sound right there is, I've talked about that before. And I didn't know about lipedema then. She's trying to make it sound like she had lipedema back when she started her blog, which if we take it all the way back to 2012, I have never heard her say anything about lipedema in her blogs from that time period. Which, I don't know, back in 2012, it may not have been that well known. So there is that. But also, she doesn't look... If she has lipedema in 2012, which it is entirely possible that she might, according to the US standards, she would be stage 1 at best, because it is pretty much undetectable on her if she has lipedema. But basically, what she's trying to do here as part of her revisionism is she's trying to make it sound like... Turn the flashlight off. She's trying to make it sound like she started this blog for a friend who, and also that she's had lipedema since she started the blog. If you go with she started the blog back in 2016, that might be true because she's had lipedema for over 7 years at this point. But otherwise, she's full of shit.
We used to reveal names on social media. We all had like cool code names. So that was my code name. And fast forward maybe like a couple years, 3 or 4 years, I'm working in a tech company and we made software for social media. And they were like, we need you to test this. I was a product manager. So like literally my background is coding. I have a master's in statistics. That's what I was doing there. And we were testing like analytics and like...
The master in statistics, what is she doing in coding? Like, her degree makes no sense to me, honestly, because I cannot tell what the hell her degree is supposed to be. Because half the time, I just don't know what it is. It constantly changes, I feel like. And it's always something different. You know, I don't know. I never have a good grasp on what the hell Anna's degree is. But anyway.
Programming for content. And we needed an account to test that. So I was like, oh, I'll just throw my personal account in here and then I'll post every day. And that way, like, I can see it. And my friends will be like doing me a solid and like it because that's what friends did back in the time.
Yep.
And it blew up.
Wow. What was it? Like, did you have a...
And that is similar-ish to the story that she tells in the Medical Detective story podcast. But that is different than the stories she has told in the past when she has been interviewed about the beginning of the Glitter and Lasers Instagram and blog, right? So just putting that out there.
Specific post or reel that just absolutely went nuts?
I will say on TikTok, I did have one like piece of content that really blew me up initially. I was in Cuba and I was just walking in Cuba, which is like a weird thing. And I think
Walking
I
in
am
Cuba.
a larger body that a lot of people have not seen being active. And so I think it really shocked and presented something that a lot of people hadn't seen at that time. I think it's a little bit more common now in social media, but at that time, like a lot of people in my size bodies did not show themselves.
Yeah.
And they specifically did not show themselves like living a cool life. So here I was, a plus size person in this country that a lot of people are maybe afraid to go to, doing things that people dream about. And so I think I became inadvertently this inspiration to live beyond your size. And I think that has been a challenging part of my journey because yes, I absolutely want to inspire people to live their best lives, but I also have a lot of guilt and frustration with myself during that time because I didn't look at my weight and go, something's not right. Because I was like really deep in that body positive movement and just really the perceptive of this is just my body size. And come to find out, I kept getting bigger and it didn't make any sense. And obviously my body wasn't happy at that size or happy.
I kept getting bigger and it didn't make sense. To who? Well, Anna, there's this thing called calories, and when you eat more of them than you burn, you tend to gain weight. That's basically how that works. The thing that just blows my mind with Anna is that she refuses to believe that her body follows the basic laws of physics. And I know that irritates a couple people when we talk about, like, you know, thermodynamics and that kind of shit. But look, there's nothing wrong with Anna. Anna, there's nothing wrong with her. Anna has spent her entire online career desperately trying to find something wrong with her because she refuses to believe that she ate herself fat. And I don't get it. But anyway.
In that way, or something wasn't right because it wasn't staying consistent. And the most frustrating thing about this, I think, in being online and being so present and having so many people see me is like the things I was doing and have always done were always questioned, right? It was like, oh, she's just walking 5 steps for camera and then sitting down, which if you've ever met me, I'm not a sit downer ever. I do too much. And it's something I've actually...
Anna used to sit down to film all of her videos. Nothing wrong with that, but don't tell me you're not a sit downer. Anna used to sit down to film all of her videos until people started pointing out that she sits down to film all of her videos. Then she used to stand up, but she was behind her kitchen counter and she was leaning against her kitchen counter. This is when Anna was, if she wasn't actually 600 pounds, I will be shocked. She was way bigger than she is today. And so she would stand behind her kitchen counter. She had like a kitchen island thing, and she would stand behind it and she would lean directly onto the kitchen counter while she would film her videos. And she did that until people started pointing out that A, she was leaning, and B, she was wider than her fridge, which I'm sure is not nice to hear. So then she came out around the front of her kitchen counter and started to lean backwards on the kitchen counter. And that's pretty much what she did until she moved into the new apartment that she was in. And then she started filming her fashion hauls, but she films them in clips so that she doesn't have to be standing for long, because it's clear from her labored breathing and from her just the flushness that she gets throughout her fashion hauls that it's hard for her to do that. So it's clear that she's taking breaks in between. But around, I don't know, 2023-ish, she decided that she was the, health queen, and she started working out with Copilot, who is now Trainwell. Yeah. And that's when she tried to start convincing her audience that she was losing weight through exercise alone, which is bullshit. And she was actually taking Wegovy on the side, but didn't tell anybody she was doing this. So thanks, Anna, for being transparent. And she got called out a lot until she finally admitted it, kind of. And she buried that admission deep on her Instagram. Like, you had to really be digging to find it. And then she didn't outwardly admit it to her larger audiences until she started her lipedema journey, and she told them that she had to go off the Wegovy in order to get the surgery. And then she tried to make it sound like the only reason she had been on the Wegovy was for pain management, for inflammation and pain management, which is absolute BS. So there you go. I don't know why I have to grab my ears, but I do. It's where my ears are.
Actually had to relearn in part of my recovery. But so it's weird because I would dare say that I was more confident and had a better relationship with food before social media than I do after.
She would constantly talk in her blog before about her bad relationship with food, her binging. She would admit that she had an addiction to sugar and other foods. She would admit to this stuff. Like, she was like, I have a food addiction. I'm not good with food. I have trigger foods. She would admit to binging episodes. How is that a better relationship with food? I don't think you had a good relationship with food. I don't think you had a better or a worse relationship with food. I think you've always had a shit relationship with food, and you just continued to have a shit relationship with food. Like, I don't think you have a better or worse relationship with food before or after social media. Anyway.
Because I never really thought about what anybody else thought about those things in that period of time.
Yeah. I listened to your podcast, the Medical Detectives podcast, which is really interesting, by the way. We can talk a little bit more about that later. But I heard you talk about that part of your journey and how you felt like this guilt and the dichotomy of being out there saying, accept your body, love your body, and then realizing, wait, something might be wrong with my body and maybe I do need to tell this to everyone. And I think that's really interesting. And I want to talk a little bit more about that. But before we do, I'm just curious, before you started this social media journey and this online presence, childhood Anna, did you always just have this inherent self-confidence, and was this just always your personality?
It's tough. I've always had a weird way of seeing the world, and I don't.
Oh yeah, this is gonna get really rich really fast. I guess this is the benefit to have listened to the podcast beforehand. Just trigger warning for some people. She's gonna start talking about neurodivergency. Anna has recently decided that she is neurodivergent, and she sometimes talks about ADHD on her videos, and she's been doing that now for a little while. I want to say over a year at this point. Talks about her ADHD. Whether or not she has it or is one thing, I guess, but she also uses a blanket term of neurodivergent, and I don't know exactly what she thinks I don't know what she means when she says that. But I have noticed that Anna uses blanket terms a lot to kind of shield herself from criticism and things, or when she's trying to be, for lack of a better term, quirky. She will say ADHD straight when she means ADHD. She'll say neurodivergent when she's trying to worm her way around something that she's not quite comfortable coming out and saying yet. And she does this with chronic pain. She doesn't come out and say, she uses that as a blanket term, right? So she uses neurodivergent as a blanket term. She uses her chronic pain as a blanket term. She's been using her flare-ups as a blanket term. Like we don't know what she's talking about. And her other one is her immunocompromised whatever. She doesn't define any of this. She just throws it out there when she needs an excuse for something, right? So these are the blanket terms that she uses. And I think there's like another one that she uses here and there. But if she doesn't feel good, or she feels like she's getting too much flack from the internet, or people aren't reacting to her the way she thinks that they should be reacting to her, or she's not getting the ass pats she thinks she should be getting, she falls back on these. Oh, I'm having chronic pain. I'm having a flare up. I'm neurodivergent, so I don't think the way normal people think. Okay, sweetheart. How are you neurodivergent aside from ADHD? You know, and she's only ADHD when it's convenient for her to be ADHD. So that's why I'm very sus about the ADHD thing. It's a whole, I just, you know, she collects shit the way Amber collects shit, and she uses her diagnoses the way Amber uses her diagnoses. She collects things that she thinks makes her sound unique and special, and she uses them as a shield to make herself unique and special. And heaven forbid you challenge her on something, because now you're an evil, nasty person who's challenging someone who has unique and special problems, and you're a monster, how dare you? And God forbid you actually have one of the issues that she claims to have, because somehow you're not as special as she is. So, hang on. All right, there we go. Back to the podcast. And again, I'm just going to let her go, because I've already listened to this once and it set me off, but I know what she's going to say this time.
I don't know if that is from being slightly neurodivergent, or because I was like had to be really independent as a
Slightly
child. That I always
neurodivergent.
had the perspective when
It's
people
like being
were mean to
slightly
me, that I was like,
pregnant.
man, why can't they see how awesome I am? That
I
makes me sound
love
so
that.
big.
No,
That's awesome.
Anna, okay, just food for thought. This is so random. You're sharing this is a podcast of neurodivergence here,
Yeah.
so we're going to be like, but I'm chasing a squirrel. You need to write a children's book for that kid. Just anyway, keep going.
But yeah, I think that was the bigger challenge for me, is I almost began to think my own self-viewpoint was flawed, because I was often fed contradictory perspectives on that. And throughout my life, I've done some pretty amazing things. And
Okay, here's something I will say. My partner's neurodivergent. My partner's on the spectrum. I have never... we have had some conversations. I have never heard him say, maybe my perspective is wrong. I have never heard him say that. And I'm not trying to be an ass about this. He believes we're weird. He thinks people not on the spectrum are the weird people. I've had other friends and acquaintances who are on the spectrum, because once you've met one, you meet more. And we used to go to an adult meetup that was adults on the spectrum. They're all like that. I'm not going to say that every single person in the world on the spectrum thinks this way, but all of them that I have met thought that way. They are not the ones that are weird. We're the weird ones. I have never heard one of them go, I wonder if my perception of the world is the strange perception of the world. They're usually like, no, wow, you're weird. Why do you think that way? You know? So for Anna to be like, wow, I started to think maybe my outlook was the weird outlook. It just makes me go, really? All right. I mean, I am not on the spectrum. So, but I'm just saying, it pisses me off when people try to do this shit. And I get really, really critical of it because I get really protective of my partner. So, I don't know. If you have a different experience, let me know. Because again, not on the spectrum, and not every person on the spectrum is the same. But if it irritates the fuck out of you when people do this shit, let me know down in the comment section down below. Because I know it irritates the shit out of me. Anyway, I'm going to let her finish now.
I think because I've always sought knowledge and exploration over attractiveness, I've had a lot to ground my self-worth on that isn't related to how I look or my size.
I love that.
I know a lot of people in this community struggled with weight from a very early age, started on the Weight Watchers and all the crazy diets like at 10 or whatever. And then especially if you have this disproportion and your body's not responding the way your friends' bodies are, did you ever feel like something's wrong with me? I'm just different?
Oh, 100%. Like, I feel like I don't think anyone can say they went through childhood not hating themselves at some point. I think the challenge with being in a bigger body is like, I was already awkward, right? I was socially weird. I also grew up in a really religious family, so that made me super cool.
Safeties.
I wanted to tell you about Jesus. And guess what? People don't want to hear about Jesus in middle school.
They don't, but we tried though. We tried though, didn't we?
We did try. Did not help us. Let's put it that way. If you paint a picture of me when I was younger, I was a larger kid. I hate saying overweight because I don't think there is a set weight. So underweight, overweight, I guess those are.
Yes, there is. There's very much an overweight and an underweight. I've already had this rant once, but I'm going to have this rant continuously. There's a reason why there's an average. If you like being able to buy drugs over the counter, then you need to acknowledge that there's an average. If you are over average or under average, then you need to be treated differently. Not because you're a freak of nature or there's something wrong with you. It's because if you don't fall into the range of average and I treat you the same way, I'm either under-treating you or potentially over-treating you and could very severely hurt you one way or the other. If you need more treatment in order to help you, I need to do that. If you need less treatment in order to help and not hurt you, I need to adjust for that. Average is where that's the Goldilocks, right? That's the Goldilocks zone. Anybody outside of that needs to be adjusted for in order to help them, right? If Anna wasn't the average weight, wasn't in the Goldilocks zone for weight of a child her age. Now, Anna is tall, and Anna has always been tall, and Anna says as much. She admits here that she was, well, okay, she says here that she's 5'10.5. Whatever, Anna. Just admit that you're 5'11. Anyway, so she admits that she's always been tall. So that's going to put her weight higher than average anyway, because she's a taller than average person. So she's not average. So no, she can't be treated like an average child, right? She needs more than an average child, right? It's not a bad thing. It just means she needs to be adjusted for. She can't be treated like an average child. She will not be getting enough, okay? But it is possible to give her too much, right? There's a sliding scale. And there is a point where that scale, if you continue to slide up it, you're still over giving that kid too much, right? You're overcompensating. There's compensating, and then there's overcompensating. There's undercompensating, there's compensating, and then there's undercompensating, right? You can hurt somebody by not giving them enough, right? This is not a difficult concept in my mind. I'm always perplexed why it is a hard concept for other people. And I'm sorry if that has me coming off being an ass, because I don't understand why other people don't understand. So I'm sorry if that has me coming off being kind of asshole-ish, but I feel like when it comes to people like Anna, they are purposefully making it complicated when it's not. And I feel like they're doing it specifically because they don't want to admit that they do understand that there's average and that things need to be adjusted one way or the other. And that instead of doing that, she's overcompensating. She's taking too much. She's eating too much. She's consuming too much. She's not moving enough. Right? It's one of those things where she doesn't want to take responsibility for her own physical shape. And instead of just admitting that, she wants to overcomplicate the whole concept of average, because now she can claim that people are treating her weird because she doesn't fit the Goldilocks. It's like, yeah, you don't. And that's why you need to be adjusted for. It's not bad. I just need to adjust for you so that you can get what you need. I'm not trying to be a dick. I'm trying to help you correctly. Why is this bad? Anyway, now I'm just ranting. Keep going.
Medical terms, but I just feel like it's a very villainizing term to throw on
someone. It's not a villainizing term.
And
You're
also,
just
like,
an
I was
idiot.
a big kid. So I hit puberty really early. There's a photo of me with all my cousins. I am 6.5. My cousins are 12 and 13. I am the same like size as them.
Wow.
I don't know if that's hitting
I
puberty
was
early,
my full
though.
height in 5th grade.
How tall
And
are you?
I'm 5'10", 10.5.
Oh, tall
we're the
girls
same.
unite.
So imagine being that height in like 5th
No,
grade.
you were
Yeah.
This was,
literally
like,
right
that
next to
Yeah,
me.
so I was just big. I was just big all around. So like also then being heavier and like awkward. Everybody tried to get me to play volleyball all the time. Did that happen to you too?
Oh,
was
yeah.
like,
I made every sports team. I've said this before on the podcast. Like from the earliest of ages, the coaches saw me come. They were like, "Yeah, like you're in." And then I started playing, and they're like, "Oh,
You're out.
no, you're out."
In basketball, I was only good because I was like literally a wall. Like there would be like a child like half my size, and I'm just like, oh, and it'd be like literally afraid of me because I looked like the Hulk to a
Oh,
small
right.
child. But even though we were the same age,
See, these traumas are what make us.
Anna is saying literally the way Amber says it. I find that interesting.
oh yeah, hell
Come
yeah,
back
I'm
again.
hilarious because my life is so jacked.
Right.
Yeah, I definitely
Fair.
struggled and had self-worth issues. I think that is true, but it was like from a different perspective. And I think that it wasn't ever, I'm going to, I hate to say this, unalive myself or I'm not worthy. It was more that was like, how can I help people see that I have worth? Because I know I have worth, but I don't understand why nobody else understands I have worth.
Wow. Yeah.
And I think that's a really hard, it's just as painful, but it's a different type of pain because you then start to think, am I wrong? Am I wrong in thinking that I have worth? And so I think that was my challenge. And again, people are like, that's so much easier. It's not. Again, it's just that brain working slightly differently, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So taking that into your adulthood and then really stumbling into this creative space with Instagram and this platform, what does your platform mean to you now? What's the intent behind it? What has it grown into?
Yeah. So I would say it definitely has evolved. I think there was this initial time in my life where I was like, money in the pockets. And I have, there were some really good times. Let me be real. But no, I have stepped away from that perspective. And for me, it's what can I do good in the world? One of the things I'm like really cognizant of and I really try not to do, sometimes my personal perspectives slip through because I have, obviously, all of us have had medical journeys and they shape how we see different treatments and different things. But I really try to rely on this messaging that nobody can tell you more about your body than you already know living in it. And treatment should start with a medical professional. And that finding that medical professional is really important. So on the medical side, that's a lot of where.
Okay, I just went and got my blood work done yesterday. And I was a giant ass baby about it, but I went and got my blood work done yesterday. I don't know what my results are, but they pulled 4 vials of blood out of me. Still not pleased. Anyway, I'm a big baby about it. You don't know shit about your body, okay? Amber feels that she doesn't have cancer anymore. Amber's never been to a follow-up thing to know that she doesn't have cancer anymore, right? Amber bled for how many years before she finally went to the doctor? She probably knew something was wrong. She probably had a fear that it might be something like cancer. She didn't know she had cancer, right? It's shit like this that keeps people from going to the doctor. And Anna is incredibly guilty of encouraging people not to trust their doctors. Anna's whole podcast honest to God, the first 4 episodes, again, I've only listened to the first 4 or 5 episodes, have been nothing but talking about how doctors misdiagnose, how doctors mistreat, how doctors ignore, how doctors don't listen to their patients because you have depression, you have anxiety, you have something wrong with you that they don't know what it is. You're fat, you're this, you're that. So you're not the perfect patient. So your doctors are just going to ignore you and dismiss you. That's pretty much what her podcasts that's the message you come away from with her podcasts, is that if you're anything other than the perfect specimen of a patient, your doctors are going to be adversarial towards you. So you can't trust your doctors. That's Anna's podcast in a nutshell. So what the fuck are you talking about, Anna?
My messaging is, I am not going to tell you to do X, Y, and Z. I'm going to tell you to investigate it with your doctor.
Yep.
Because I've had a lot of things I've done or tried to do in my life that have affected my body negatively because I put Joe Schmo, who is a trainer on the internet, told me that this was a good idea.
Yeah.
And I just don't think that culture needs any more help. They really hate me and they do a lot to talk negatively about me because they want to sell you something. And I don't really want to or need to sell you something other than hopefully the desire to go be healthy in whatever that.
I think she just took a swung at Alan there, but also I wonder if she's not also bad-mouthing Copilot / Trainwell, because I haven't heard her talk about them in a while. But she is talking about Trainer on the internet. Copilot and Trainwell are only via the internet and online app. So that's the only way you can access those. It would be very interesting to me if she's starting to badmouth those two, because again, she spent the majority of 2023 trying to convince everybody that the only reason she was losing weight was because she was working out with Copilot. So that's an interesting swing back. Also, they want to sell you something. Yeah, we know you don't like Alan. We know Alan doesn't like you. Knock it off. We get it. Shut up.
Way that looks like for you.
Yeah.
The second thing I really focus on is just finding joy in your everyday life. I think we spend a lot of time trying to aspire for lives that are not real. And having lived in the Instagram world and the social media world, I have seen firsthand how manufactured people's lives are.
Yeah.
Your life
I
is
am not
manufactured.
cool. And people are like, oh yeah, but you are cool. And I'm like, no, I am not cool with a purpose, because most people are not cool.
Yeah.
Most people are just trying to get through the day the best way they can and feel good about it.
Yeah.
Most people are not going to crazy concerts and events all the time. Most people aren't buying designer purses every week.
Yeah.
And that is,
Says the woman who just posted about how Pop something or other just gifted you a bunch of clothes. You just got gifted several PR boxes from random companies while you were off having your surgery. You went to some kind of mattress party while you were at South by Southwest. Like, why the fuck were you at South by Southwest? What else has happened recently that you've just been gaga over? Like, don't sit here and tell me how, like, online people are so fake and all they do is show you the highlights of their life, when literally all you've been doing recently, which again is your job, so I expect that you would do this, is show me the highlight reel of your life and all of the cool shit that you've been getting simply because you're an influencer. And then get on a podcast and be like, oh my God, everybody's so fake. I'm purposefully not fake. Anna, honey, you want me to go back over your Instagram for you? Stop that. It looks bad.
not a realistic lifestyle to attain for.
Yeah.
I work with Starbucks. I love working with Starbucks because it's real. It's a place I get coffee all the time.
Starbucks
You know what I
is
mean?
real.
It is a part of my life, so it makes sense. And so I've really focused more on working with partners and things like that that are real parts of my life versus aspirationally shooting for things that just don't really equal me,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
I
They
think-
don't reflect like who you actually are.
Yeah. And I think the only exception to that is when I feel like there needs to be someone in the room that looks like me and there's not. So sometimes I go to events that feel uncomfortable for me solely because I might be the only bigger person in that room. So sometimes
So Anna only goes to public events because she is sacrificing for the rest of us so that we can see larger bodied people being uncomfortable at public events. Thank you, Anna. You are the true martyr we didn't know we needed.
Sometimes I just show up because people need to see people like me living, doing cool things.
They do. It's so
Mhm.
important, and that's why your content is so inspiring. I love it.
Mhm.
I just love it. It's weird to say I just love to see your body, but I do. But it's true. It's because you don't see it. I feel like you said you are seeing it more and more different shapes and sizes of bodies on the internet. But for so long, that was a big issue for me growing up. Is that, of course, we didn't really have social media. I don't know, maybe MySpace when I was a teenager. But like on TV or in movies or in magazines, like I did not see my body represented ever.
And if you were there, it was like someone trying to lose weight.
Yeah.
Like the character's story arc was losing weight,
Yep.
which I think it's challenging. And I would even say within the plus size creator space,
God forbid we show characters who are trying to get healthy. That would be ridiculous.
in general, since I live so heavily in that space, there's a lot of pressure to always be seen beautiful. So like always have your makeup and hair done. And I have made a conscious effort to show myself in what would be considered ugly phases. So
I have made a conscious effort to show myself in what I call ugly phases. Yes, that's what's been going on. Okay, it's a conscious effort to not wake up and do your makeup every day. I don't care. I really don't. I've tried very hard not to come too hard for her about not doing her hair and makeup because she's a fashion influencer, whatever. But now that you've said this shit, no, Anna. You have not been doing, you've been going through an ugly phase because you've been depressed and everyone knows it. Okay? You've been sharing on threads about how fucking miserable you've been since you've started doing this fucking surgery. All right? You're not purposefully showing us your ugly face. You've been depressed and you haven't been taking care of yourself. That's what's been going on. Stop it. God. You recently had your arms done. You couldn't lift them high enough to brush your own hair, let alone do makeup. Stop it. I wish I could live in a world where I could just rewrite my shit and believe every word I say.
show myself when my face is in a flare, to show myself without makeup, to show myself with acne, to show myself when I look terrible. Because 50% of the time, that is how I look.
I
We
get it.
have this perspective that everybody's put together all the time, and the reality is we're not.
And then you post to Instagram, and it's so easy and so tempting to just want to do a little like, ding, let me put that little Paris filter on that just kind of smooths out my complexion, all this stuff. But I think, like you said, it's so important to show the real
Yeah.
and be unfiltered.
But I do also show, like, I'm just be very real. Sometimes I will do like a fantasy makeup
Mhm.
and I will do filters and stuff because that to me is just creating art.
It's fun.
And that is
Yeah.
another side of myself. But I don't think those things have to live in contrast with each other because I feel like I show enough of myself as like
Well,
the Hot Mess Express that you can appreciate the times when I go and create something artistic. And I think that if anything, what social media needs more of is like multifaceted people.
Yes. Yes.
We live in this like one vein of what a person looks like. And then we lose sight of the fact that people are ugly and beautiful. People are talented and also terrible at things.
Mhm.
People are messy and they're clean.
Yes.
We are all of these states of being at various times of our journey, our day, our week. And to really show a person, you do have to show all of those parts of your life. And so that's really what I'm trying to be. And I get hate no matter what I do. So who cares?
You know what? Yeah. And I think too, if ever the intent is to put things out of authenticity on the internet, if it's ever for to hopefully please somebody, that's just a losing battle because we're never going to be able to please everyone. Everyone is always going to have an opinion. I can only imagine the type of junk that you have to deal with. And hopefully, though, you get what we're telling you. I think that the fact that you put on display the tension that is like our personhood, it is today I have my makeup on. But just 2 hours ago, I was covering up this spot under my nose because my skin wants to act like a teenager today.
Right here, girl. I got you. I got one
Right
too.
here.
That's her sister.
Yeah, but showing that tension is, I think that is more than likely probably what's drawn people to you, whether they know it or not. Because for you, it's you're displaying that just all of these different tensions and also living in a bigger body and doing that authentically. But for somebody else stumbling on your page, it might be, hey, I don't ever show the part of me that like really loves to read. And also my comprehension isn't all that great. And so I struggle and just being honestly real. So thank you for just being authentic because we need more of that.
I
Anna, I don't know if I'd go so far as to say Anna's authentic, to be perfectly honest with you. Wow, I actually filled up a keychain. Never done that before. I don't know. I disagree. I guess I'll just leave it at that. I disagree with the authenticity part of it. I think Anna goes really far out of her way to convince people that she is a whole lot happier and adjusted, and I don't know, just Anna tries to fool herself by fooling other people, I think, is where I'm going with this. And I don't, that whole thing that she was telling people, like, that she was saying earlier about, like, why don't people see how awesome I am because I think I'm awesome? I honestly think Anna doesn't really believe that. And I think she's just trying to convince people of that. She's trying to convince herself that by convincing other people that, right? Sorry, I was trying to do too many things at once. Anyway, I think I forgot to tell you guys that this game is like modded to the gills because it's a sandbox game. There's that. All right. Anyway,
I feel like you've done the same thing with your surgery journey, where it's been very transparent. There's a lot of reels and content of you like actually laying on the operating table. So
thanks
it's
for that.
pretty transparent. But this is all fairly new, right?
You laying on a surgery table is not transparency.
When did you discover that you had lipedema?
So here's the
Excuse
funny
me.
story. And this is wild. So I have these social media accounts about 7 years ago. And this woman emails me who works, I think, at one of the lipedema research organizations.
7
And
years
she
ago
goes, I
from
work for this organization.
2025,
You have
actually
lipedema. You
2024
are
would
like the
be-
characteristic archetype. And even like through my journey, my body type is like the characteristic archetype. I have a lot of weight in certain areas. I have no weight on my hands.
2017.
People always are like, why are your fingers so thin? It's because I have lipedema. So she's, you have lipedema. And I remember calling my friend up and being like, this witch is sending me an email trying to diagnose me with a medical condition. She doesn't know me, blah, blah, blah. And it's wild because I still think it's like inappropriate to diagnose someone over the internet, but also she was right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it did take a while of me, A, knowing that, and then B, struggling with some things. I did what I think a lot of people do, which is like okay, I guess I have it without a diagnosis, which I honestly don't recommend because I think there is a lot of healing and a lot of acceptance and a lot of courage that you get from having a real diagnosis. And I think one of the biggest problems personally plaguing the community is that people don't get diagnoses.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And so they become experts on what's said in
Anna, I need you to go say that to yourself in a mirror about your EDS and your ADD and your neurodivergency and what were you trying to say you had the other day? Oh God, all of the other things that you try to tell yourself that you have, I need you to go say this to yourself in the mirror. But anyway.
a Facebook group versus experts on their own body. And to really manage this illness, you need to become an expert in your own body.
Yep.
And that is, and honestly, doing the medical detectives has taught me that's true for any chronic illness. Like diagnoses are like life-changing, but also they are not uniform. They are not consistent. And just because you have the same diagnosis does not mean that your bodies will react the exact same way to every stimuli. So until you start that journey with a doctor, it's really hard to get to the root of what's actually causing you to live the way you're living and how you manage it best. I am mad at myself for living in that little bit of that self-diagnosis space for a while, but eventually I ended up working with an obesity research doctor in Houston. And so I was driving 3 hours, pretty much a week at one point to see her there and back. So 6 hours a day. Sometimes I'd stay overnight. And we started to work on, I was like, I need to understand why I'm big. I think part of it is lipedema, but this doesn't make sense. So she did a bunch of.
So she goes to start seeing the obesity doctor because she can't figure out why she's obese. She thinks it might be lipedema. Like half of the reason I'm obese is because of the lipedema. But I can't figure out why the other half is. Okay. Anna, really?
Research. I had met with a primary care physician previously, and we had found I had a lot of different deficiencies and issues. Some autoimmune things came up during that process as well. And so I had treated all of that. Now I was looking at managing my weight. So we put me on a GLP-1 just to see how it did, right? And instantly I just started moving more.
So now the story is that she started the GLP-1 for inflammation and autoimmune, not weight management. And she was put on it by her obesity specialist, who totally didn't put her on it for her obesity. It was for her autoimmune diseases. Okay. GLP-1s back in 2017 were not being used for this purpose.
And I felt like I got part of my old self back because I had slowly stopped moving over maybe the course of 7 or 8 years to where I was doing much less than I used to do.
Get out of the
And
vehicle.
that old part of me came back. And I was like, that's weird. It must be because
Have to
I've
fight
lost
the
weight.
zombies.
Because that's what you get. That's the story you get told. When you lose weight, magically life
Oh.
comes easier and better. And maybe that's not necessarily untrue, but that's what I chalked all of it up to. And then it just stopped. And we tried to change my medication to see if we could like up it. I ended up having a weird allergic reaction to it, to the new medication. And so we went back and we're like, nothing's moving. We tried combinations of meds. We tried new treatments. The doctor I was working with was, again, at a research facility. So she had access to things that necessarily might not be available generally to the public at this point or haven't been used yet widely. And at some point she said, you know, I know you have lipedema. We've discussed it before. I don't know how to treat that. I know how to diagnose it. I know how to recognize the texture in the skin, but I don't know how to treat it. So let's find you a doctor. I found my doctor by...
So your obesity doctor that works at a research facility who can identify your lipedema that you went to the obesity doctor with, like you suspected you had lipedema, so you went to the obesity doctor thinking you had lipedema. They put you on GLP-1s thinking you had lipedema, but you're on the GLP-1s for autoimmune, not obesity. This doctor works at a research facility, so they were putting you on other experimental drugs that we don't know what those are, that you were allergic to. Finally tells you, I don't know how to treat your lipedema. At a research facility. Anyway. Sorry, her stories don't make sense.
A bed. So we saw a couple different doctors. All of them were doctors who had published or written in the academic space. And that is how I found who I eventually ended up going with. And when I saw Dr. Amron during the consult...
Hang on. Oops, sorry. Oh no.
Was so fibrotic, found how to treat it. So let's... And at some point she said, you know, I know you have lipedema. We've discussed it before. I don't know how to treat that. I know how to diagnose it. I know how to recognize the texture in the skin, but I don't know how to treat it. So let's find you a doctor. I found my doctor via PubMed.
I found my doctor via PubMed. PubMed is a website that puts up abstracts and full papers of medical publications and journals. That's what PubMed does. Anna is claiming that she went to PubMed, read medical articles about lipedema, and from that selected her doctors, which were Dr. Amron, to work with her lipedema. Dr. Amron, who is a who is a liposuction doctor, not a like clinical research medical doctor, right? Karen Herbst falls in that category, but she mentions Amron, not Herbst, right? Now, let's go all the way back to Anna's social media. Back when she just got done with the Disney cruise back in 2024. I think it was springish going into summer of 2024. And she has her breakdown in the hotel room and she's telling us that she's going to be having surgery for her lipedema. And this is when she admits that she had been on Wegovy and that she realized after she came off the Wegovy that that's when she started having her pain again. And this is when she really started getting a lot of criticism for her bullshit. Anyway, she says then that this obesity doctor that she's talking about, I am assuming, told her to work with Amron because that the obesity doctor recommended Amron because Amron was connected to Karen Herbst, and Karen Herbst is an authority on lipedema in the United States. She didn't do any of her own fucking research in the original story that she herself put on the internet last year. She was recommended Amron by the obesity doctor, the one that she just got done saying doesn't know how to treat lipedema. She can diagnose it and she knows what it looks like and she knows what it feels like. She knows everything about lipedema except how to treat it. She's the one that recommended Dr. Amron, and she specifically recommended Amron because Amron worked closely with Karen Herbst. Again, Herbst being the U.S. authority on lipedema. Also, apparently an international laughingstock when it comes to lipedema. So, have fun with that one. Now, all of a sudden, Anna is the one that got on PubMed, a website that publishes medical papers and journals. And she, Anna, who has a degree in statistics and what does she claim? Statistics and data science. She read through medical papers filled with medical jargon on lipedema, and she selected from that Dr. Amron. Okay, Anna. Really? This is why no one believes you. Not only do you constantly change your stories, but we can go back on your own social media and fact check you. This is the problem Amber runs into, is she will say shit that we can go back on her own social media and fact check. And then Amber goes, I don't know why you guys think I'm lying, because you are. Either you have really big holes in your memory, which Amber claims, or you have forgotten what you have said in the past, and you were either lying in the past, or you have forgotten the story that you have made up, and now you are making up a new story. Which is it? Which story is the real story? Because one of these stories is not true. Either your obesity doctor recommended Dr. Amron for you to go see because he works with Karen Herbst, or you read PubMed articles, and from all of these lipedema articles that probably all have Karen Herbst's name attached to them, because that's how it works here. As we know through Colin Mockery and my own I didn't make a video on this, but I did also look this shit up. Herbst's name is on everything lipedema related in the US. Colin proved that with his documentary. So how the fuck you found Amron, I don't know. Through PubMed articles. You would have found Herbst, not Amron. Right? So I don't know how this story is accurate at all. But anyway, your story has now completely changed from being recommended by one doctor specialist to another specialist, which is more accurate. Occam's razor, that's probably more what actually happened than Anna, the gifted child that she is, went to PubMed with no medical background whatsoever, sat down and read articles on lipedema and worked her way through them, and from there figured out that Amron is the doctor she needed to go see, even though I will guarantee you his name is probably on very few, if not any, of those papers on PubMed. Anna, stop it. Stop it. Stop. Pick your story, write it out, memorize it, and stop trying to embellish it. because you're just getting yourself in trouble. Or just quit lying, because that's the problem here. You're trying to make yourself sound cool. You're fucking up because you forget what you're saying. You forget the story. You're losing the plot. You're trying to add too many details to make yourself sound like a superwoman. And you're forgetting that you have already told us this story in a completely different way. A completely different way that is much more believable. To say that a specialist that I was seeing for obesity recommended me to another specialist who works with lipedema, who works closer with the specialist in lipedema in the United States, that is a much more believable cycle than my obesity specialist who can recognize and diagnose and knows everything about lipedema except how to treat it. That makes no sense. That was a stonewall. They couldn't help me anymore. So I personally went to PubMed and searched through PubMed articles to find Dr. Amron. No, you didn't. No, you fucking didn't. Anyway. Whoosh. Where are we on this? All right, we got 4 more minutes and then we're at where I was at last time. How far we got in the recording so far? All right, let's do four. You know what? No, we're going to stop right here, right now. We're roughly where I was last time. All right. If you have made it this far in the podcast, yes, that's what we're doing. If you have made it this far in the video, go ahead and leave a zombie or a brain down in the comment section, because we're playing Zomboid. And I've just been kind of investigating houses, gathering. I'm looking for an axe. I don't think I'm going to find one. So that's what's been going on with the gameplay. So there's that. Excuse me. So if you've made it that far, go ahead, zombie and brain, or just zombie and or brain. Is there a brain? There's got to be a brain, right? Let me know what you think down in the comment section down below. Have you listened to this episode? Do you listen to Lipedema Mamas? Is this a normal podcast for you? So, because I don't, and I probably won't, because there's no reason for me to. Let me know about that down below. I know I've asked a couple questions here and there throughout the podcast. I know I've had a couple of rants. Let me know what you guys think about that, because I know a couple of them I've been like, I have very strong opinions, but also I don't have one-to-one experience on some of these things. I just have very strong opinions. So there's that. And that doesn't necessarily mean I'm right. It just means I have a strong opinion. But yeah, that's pretty much all I've got for you guys right now. This is part 1. I'm going to go record part 2. I will put, because I don't think you guys say you'll sit through like a 3 to 4 hour episode, but no, I'm not doing it. Anyway, I don't really have anything else to say that I didn't say throughout the podcast. So thank you to everybody who's been supporting the channel. Thank you to my subscribers. Thank you to my members. You guys rock. If you like this kind of content, go ahead and subscribe. I don't listen to every podcast, but I do listen to some, and I do a lot of Glitter and Lasers content. So go ahead and subscribe for that. There are memberships. If you guys would like, you do get early access to episodes, among other things that I am working on being better about. And thank you to everybody who's going to hit thumbs up button. And yeah, zombie brains. Let me know what you guys think, and I will see everybody in the part 2. Bye.
This is my outro music. You can't copyright strike me because it's just me singing. This is my outro music. Thank you for watching. See you next time.